is, constant evolution and trying to look at the restaurant, trying to find the established patterns that it's had. We're almost 7 years old now. And Chef and I sat down, 3 months ago and said, okay, largely we've been cooking in the same genre for that entire 7 years. Now, the menu changes seasonally, and new concepts have been made, new techniques have been established, but the style has largely been the same, and we call it Progressive American. So now that everything is shifting, I'm not saying that the style of cooking is ending or dying, but I'm saying if you look at gastronomy, there's this constant up and down. I mean, you look back before, I think it shifts every 10 to 15 years, if you look at it. So I remember 1994, I had just graduated culinary school, and I was reading the New York Times, and there was a feature article on Charlie Trotter. And the article, this was before Ferran became, worldwide known for his style of cooking. So the article was praising Charlie for his daring, risk-taking cuisine that was blending Asian ingredients with American ingenuity and French classicalism. And they were making it sound like he was leading this revolt and revolution in gastronomy. But if you look at it, Charlie Trotter, in this country, Charlie Trotter, Thomas Keller, in this country, in America, Daniel Boulud, Gray Coons, all of these guys were cooking in that same genre. And that was from the late 80s up until about the mid 90s, which is about a 10 to 15 year spread. And then came along Ferran, Heston, Andoni, Joan Roca, Kiki, and they established themselves for this style of cooking. And then following them came Wiley, myself, Omar Cantu, that kind of continued on that 10 to 15 year period. I feel like that 10 to 15 year period is coming to an end. And it has nothing to do with the closing specifically of El Bulli, but that style of cooking has run its course. And you can see this happening in everything. It's not just cooking. Art, painting, music, technology, everything does this, up and down and up and down. So now we happen to be at the threshold where we've cooked within a certain style. Instead of continuing with that style for however long the lineage is open, we're forcing ourselves to make a change. So I think that's going to come more from creating a more visceral, emotional experience, but not just with the food. Like this molecular gastronomy, this progressive cuisine era, largely was about manipulation of ingredients to evoke emotion, to play with texture, to surprise in ways that were mostly on the plate, right? So now, let's think off the plate. Let's think of other ways that we can bring sensory things into the experience. What if we had, at some point in the meal, a live cellist come out and play either a single note or a short piece to try to articulate what you had in front of you? Can music become an ingredient? Now Heston does Sounds of the Sea, so that might be the starting point, but I'm talking about music. When you think of a violin playing, what do you think about in terms of food? Because music is actually a very expressive language, right? Maybe even more expressive than we know. So how can we involve that? How can we link the two together? How can we play more with light? How can we play more with color, aroma, but not just aroma like we've been doing it, but different. How can we make people, how can we create a set? Like if you come to Alinea, there's 4 distinct dining rooms, right? What if you started in one and you had a team in front of the house of maybe 4 or 5 people that were serving you maybe 5 of your courses, and the walls were beige and the carpet was charcoal and the tabletop was bare wood, and then a third of the way through the meal or a quarter of the way through the meal we ask you to get up and we bring you to a different environment altogether. It's like the set of a play changing. Curtains close, they go back, they rearrange the stage, curtain opens, it's entirely different. But now you're in that environment. How does that impact the way that you're eating? If now the walls are black, and instead of the light being very bright, it's very dark, and maybe it smells different in the room. Maybe there's a fireplace, maybe there's an intentional aroma that pairs with the next 5 courses in a row. And then after those 5 courses, we say, okay, please get up, and we take you to a different environment. Things like this we're looking at to try to make the experience a little bit more complex and a little bit more variable. It's like every year, if you think about it, you're dealing with the same set of building blocks, same set of seasonal food. In the summer you have tomatoes and corn. In the fall you have squash and chestnuts, right? Every year it's the same. That is, there's a ceiling on that. We're not going to invent a new nut to be at our creative disposal. So every year we're dealt with the same deck of building blocks or cards that we have to play with. So how can we be creative outside of that? That's what we're starting to look at. And then at Next, right now we did Paris, Escoffier, we did a tour of Thailand, and we're currently in Childhood, which is our expression of growing up in the Midwest in America in like the 80s. But next is going to be Ubli, and then Kyoto, and then Sicily, 1946, and then who knows where we go from there. It's kind of endless, you know? It's fun. That was a long answer, sorry.